Men and women of Reddit who caught their significant others cheating. How did you do that? And what was your reaction? My ex-husband and his family smoked a lot of pot. Still do. His sister, kids, and nanny were visiting from out of state for a few weeks. When it was time to fly home, they left their stash at my ex-Mill's house because they didn't want to take it on the plane. My ex asked if I would pick it up because I was nearby. Stupidly, I agree. I don't smoke and I was willing to carry it in my car for him. To my surprise, I found a note from the nanny to my ex saying she was in love with him and she was so happy for the time they had together. Obviously she thought he would get the weed instead of me. While it was incredibly painful at the time, I am definitely living my best life 15 years later. Worst one I know of is an acquaintance of mine. Came home from work one day and found his missus having sex with his dad. That blew up all over Facebook. And became a local drama fest where people tried to organize a shunning of the dad and missus. I remember it well because, well, I know people cheat. But with your partner's father? Come on. That's hard to beat. A guy I know was cheating on his wife and she unexpectedly came home for lunch. They lived on a busy street in a small town. Wife grabbed girlfriend by her long hair and threw her out on the street naked. And that's how the whole town found out. Me ex-husband was an early adopter of sending dick pics. I got his phone to get the numbers of his friends to invite them to a surprise birthday party while he was sleeping off a hangover. And there they were in his outbox. ETA, this was more than 12 years ago. When camera phones were barely functional. I was in the Navy and was out on deployment for 6 months after just recently getting engaged. It's one of those stupid things that young military guys do. One day I get a letter from my fiance's best friend telling me that she caught my fiance and her BF together. This was years before email and smartphones were common. We write back and forth several times and eventually it comes out how she caught them. How my fiance begged her not to tell me. And that the fiance didn't know that we were corresponding. I eventually get back to the States and plan to play it off as though I didn't know. But too many of my friends intercepted me with the news that it wasn't just the one guy, but several. And let me know that she knew that I was aware. Eventually we met. And the confrontation was minimal and tame. We broke off the engagement without a lot of drama. She kept the ring. The best friend and I ended up hooking up. At first as sort of a revenge beep kinda thing. But turned serious. We celebrate our 32nd wedding anniversary this year. Edit. Maths. This year will be 31. After 20. It's all a blur. Wife was acting unusual for a few weeks. She would want to spend time by herself on the weekends, and when she came home at night from work she would often sit in the driveway for 20 minutes on the phone. I'm not dumb. I bought a voice-activated digital recorder and stuck it in her car. I knew what I needed to know in less than 24 hours. I had some really good friends in the next town over where my girlfriend lived. And they figured it out for me. They were super gentle about it. And patient with me through my denial. Those are real friends. We were together for 5 years. Living together for around 4. I came home from work early. When I got out of my car I saw her peek through the blinds to see who was outside. I walked in the door to her co-worker on the couch. Obviously uncomfortable and clothes messy and her locked in the bathroom. I wanted to pummel the speep out of him then and there. But he was a trained MMA fighter. And I woulda left the house that night with more than a broken heart. Went to a friend's house for a while. They started dating the next day. Speep sucks. It took a while for me to get trust back in relationships. Edit. Her co-worker had been to many gatherings. And no, I wouldn't beat a woman's ass even though. Yes. She was more deserving. Thank you all for the comments. It was 10 years ago. And I'm doing good. Went for my yearly checkup and tested positive for chlamydia. Turns out my ex was sleeping around. Edit. Apparently false positives are common with these types of tests, so have your so tested as well. I hope you're in a relationship where you can openly talk about such things. She confessed to her mom. Then mother-in-law called her other daughter and told her. Sister-in-law then called me and told me. She let me listen in on a three-way call to her mom and tried to convince mom to tell me, but she refused, which basically confirmed it. Your ex-sister-in-law is the real MVP. She did the right thing. It wasn't a big damn breaking moment. It was a lot of little things. Like how she'd cancel plans at the last second. Or the random phone calls from unknown numbers she'd get. This was back before spam calls were an epidemic. Or how her phone was mysteriously off one night when I needed to get a hold of her. I had my suspicions, and then finally it clicked into place when I did some Instagram snooping and found a guy who followed her who posted a selfie wearing a very unique jacket that belonged to her. I confronted her the next day. She denied it. Tears. Begging. All of that. I dumped her and walked away. The next day I messaged that guy on Instagram and he confirmed everything. Had no idea I existed. He dumped her too. Last I heard she's an EMT in Wyoming. Hope she figured out how not to be a garbage person. 4 years ago I was dating a girl who became distant and disinterested in a lot of things we both enjoyed together. Despite attempts to talk about it, she only grew more distant, then became less available to hang out, and suddenly was working late a lot. I started getting suspicious about cheating when she was on her phone non-stop. Again I tried to talk about it, but she wouldn't engage. She also just didn't want to break up with me for whatever reason. I was actually going to end it on my own. But one weekend when she was seemingly unavailable, some mutual friends told me they spotted her with a dude from her work and they were all over each other. Coincidentally, she had also lent me her iPad and it was synced to her phone, so I saw lots of texts between those two over that weekend. They were talking about running away together, etc. He was married and her supervisor. Mutual friends were also composed of her co-workers and reported them to HR. They were both forced to do training on not sleeping with co-workers. They were both denied promotion. His wife left him. And she moved overseas. Sucked at the time. I was devastated. But karma got them good. June 1st, 2018. Normal day. A Friday. My husband had kissed me goodbye and gone to work. I was cleaning the house for company who was coming to stay the weekend. The doorbell rang. There was a man at my door who introduced himself as the husband of a woman who my husband worked with. He was there to tell me that my husband and his wife were having an affair. He had busted them about 6 months prior and had told his wife that she had to end the affair. He thinks that she did end about 3 months. But then they started up again. When he found out they were at it again, he called my husband because he knew if he confronted him in person, he'd be in a jail cell for what he'd have done. On the phone, he told my husband to leave his wife alone or else he would come and tell me everything that was happening. Apparently, my husband thought that he was bluffing. So I was literally the last to know. My husband never came home again. He got an Airbnb and a lawyer. The divorce was December 21st, 2018. We had been together for 24 years. Still hurts. Out of all the comments, this one really takes the cake. I'm so sorry. I owned a house with my fiance. I woke up in the middle of the night and he wasn't in bed. I went searching. His truck and another vehicle were in the driveway. Then I went upstairs and found the guest bedroom was locked. After barging my way in, I found him with another woman in bed. That bed happened to be my childhood bed. He forced me out of the room, literally grabbed me by the neck and pushed me out and closed the door back. I knew I couldn't do anything at that point, so I called his parents who lived a few blocks away. His dad showed up and another fight broke out. I ended up leaving and staying at his parents until dawn. I moved out that weekend and let the house foreclose. 9 years later, it's finally off my credit report. I'm happily married to an amazing man and we own a beautiful